Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to another live stream. We have lots to discuss tonight as the market moves a lot higher from a few weeks ago where we saw a lot of doom and gloom in the markets. Tonight we're going to cover a lot of things. We're going to cover macro, we're going to cover price in the Bitcoin and crypto market. We're going to look over at the stock market, and of course we'll look at gold and silver as well. And then we're going to talk about what we think is coming and what we think is happening in the markets, both in the short term, in the next maybe 6 to 8 weeks, and then what I think is coming maybe over the next 6 to 12 months. Great to have so many people on. Make sure you like the stream and drop any questions or suggestions in the chat for us to cover tonight. We have lots to discuss. As Bitcoin makes its move back up, I did say last night I was talking to alpha members in CC Pro about the fact that I thought this was a dip buying market now. Every dip was going to be bought up, and we saw that last night. If you look at Bitcoin yesterday, so we briefly touched $105,800, immediately kind of sold off back down around about 5% move, but that quickly got bought up, and as you can see, we're back heading towards the high of the range, and I think this will continue. I think we'll see these big fast moves, then a retracement where either we get some mad news story or there's some unidentified wallet that dumps some Bitcoin or something happens, and then it'll just get eaten up because we have massive institutional buy-in right now, and it's going to continue, if not get even more competitive as Bitcoin and exchanges dries up, but also more importantly, more Bitcoin companies start buying Bitcoin for their treasury, and we've seen quite big moves over the last few weeks. So right now, if we look at the Bitcoin price chart, we can see we moved up, we fell short of 106,000. I think the next time we get there, we blast through it. I think we could see an all-time high in probably in the next couple of days, to be honest. Everything seems very positive, but I think what's interesting is if we actually go back to April 7th, which was kind of the bottom for stocks and crypto, and I think it's important to remember what caused this, because we're not really much further forward. So April 7th was the tariffs. Everybody was complaining about recession. They were saying that the entire stock market was going to dump. We were going to have Black Monday. All these horror stories were around, and we kept saying we were remaining bullish. And one of the reasons for that is no matter what happens, we will get some form of rate cut this year. And every month that passes, we just get closer to that rate cut. Whether it happens in July or September, every passing day we get closer to a rate cut. Global liquidity has started increasing, and we've saw that mostly out of economies around the world other than the US. But what we have saw in the US is a massive drop in the strength of the dollar, which is allowing those currencies to weaken and print money. We saw Europe print money, or at least reduce rates. We saw China reduce rates and print money. We've saw several other governments, Canada, Australia, we saw Britain, all reduce rates in recent days. So the dollar is the kind of last one to drop rates, and obviously it's the one that controls the world, but we have saw the DXY drop quite significantly. So I think this trend of global liquidity is going to continue. Bitcoin basically is global liquidity, so Bitcoin is going much, much higher. Let's have a look at Ethereum. Ethereum last week put in almost a 50% move from the bottom to the top of the range. What's that, 48.5%? Huge move, and now above the 200-day week moving average. We're also back above this key level here that we had marked out months ago. We're back in the ascending pattern, and I think once we clear the 200-day moving average, this one here, around $2,700, I think Ethereum could be well on its way to $4,100, which if we look at the chart back in history, we can see this green box here is the key level for Ethereum to break. And I think the next time we get there, we will see probably a bit of consolidation below it. There will be lots of chat about a triple top. Triple tops never play out. Just look at the gold chart. We've saw this story many times before, and we'll maybe get a little rejection. Everybody will say that it's being rejected and it's heading much lower, and then we'll blast through it. That's exactly what I think will happen on Ethereum when we get back up to the range high around 4,100. And then from there, for me, Ethereum goes on and smashes all-time high this year. Ethereum, the most hated asset on the planet at one point, I would say, over the last few months. But what everybody was ignoring while that was all going on was that hedge funds were scooping up Ethereum faster than ever. The Ethereum ETF wasn't seeing massive outflows, and BlackRock has now filed for an in-kind redemption Ethereum ETF, which means BlackRock are bullish on Ethereum. At the same time, JP Morgan are trying to tokenize equities, and they're doing it on the Ethereum chain. So for anyone that says they are bearish on Ethereum, they're not paying attention to the real stories. They're paying attention to stupid headlines and probably people on X that aren't paying attention to what's actually going on. And it's the same people that were bearish on Bitcoin at 74k. Meanwhile, ETFs are buying, Trump's talking about Bitcoin, nations are competing to mine Bitcoin, and we have all these institutions buying Bitcoin. This is not the time to be bearish. This is a dip buy market, and for me, Ethereum goes very close to $10,000 in this cycle, and probably in 2025 if we're brutally honest. Let's have a look at XRP. So XRP, let me go to the daily chart. Maybe the 3-day chart shows it best. So we had this pattern that a lot of people were saying was playing out, head and shoulders here, and I think we did a stream where we said it's too obvious. Like, this is far too obvious. If this was to play out, it would be the easiest short in history. And typically when patterns are so obvious, especially at range highs, at range lows, we were back down here, it just seemed too obvious a short, and it was a fake out. We got that fake move, this wick below. People started screaming that they were right to short XRP, and XRP quickly reversed and is now up over 56%, nearly 57%, and absolutely smoked shorts, and is heading well back above the all-time high. And I think we see new all-time highs for XRP coming, and it'll be very quick. XRP moves fast, and I think it just looks like the market is ready to rip. We've had nice green, but we're still not back at December all-time highs, and I think once we get there, that's when the fireworks really begin, and XRP likely steals the show. I'll cover Cardano just because I get asked about Cardano quite a bit. Cardano's actually kind of just stepping up through the market, but what is really bullish is the 200-day moving average is now being held as support. This is a really bullish looking candle for today as well, and it looks like we're going to head into the rest of the week in a very bullish momentum, especially when you consider that CPI inflation was a lot lower today. So I've got a few things to share. So if we first look at this chart, this is why there is huge pressure on the Fed, and I think the Fed is going to be pressured to cut rates in June, even though the market's not pricing it in. So if we look at the prediction for the June rate cut, right now only 8% of market participants are expecting a rate cut in June. For me, I think this is going to change, and the reason I think it's going to change is when people start seeing data like this. Unemployment is starting to tick up, but only very slightly. At the same time, consumer confidence is nosediving, and then inflation is actually sitting at 2.3% and continues to beat expectations to the downside, which gives the Fed a total scapegoat for cutting rates. At the same time, there's this tweet that's surfaced today which shows that actually if you exclude shelter, so housing, rents, mortgages, from CPI inflation, real inflation is actually only 1.4%. Well, what's the biggest factor in housing? It's interest rates. Because if interest rates go up, your mortgage payment goes up. If interest rates go up, your rent goes up because your landlord's cost goes up. So interest rates are now actually inflationary, and they're actually hurting the real inflation number. And if you lower interest rates, then inflation's going to come down. That is literally simple economics. So for me, I think the Fed's going to be under a lot of pressure. I think probably up until recent weeks, the Fed's had a bit of balance. Obviously, Trump's been very pro cutting rates, but I think that tide is going to start turning. We saw Donald Trump tweet again today saying no inflation, gasoline's down, energy's down, groceries down, but again, the Fed has refused to lower rates, and he's calling them too late pill. And while some people say that they think inflation's going to come back, for me, inflation is on a downward trend, and the Fed needs to step in and cut rates before it's too late. And I do think this number here is going to change dramatically, and that's going to be so bullish for risk assets. It's going to be very bullish for Bitcoin and crypto, because the DXY is already dumping. So if we look at the DXY, okay, it's up in the last few days, but if we look at since Trump took office, the DXY is currently down 8%, peaked at down 11%. So the DXY is down because people have less faith in the dollar these days. They don't want to own US Treasuries, they don't want to own dollar debt, and the dollar's going to continue to drop. But as the dollar drops in value, that's bullish for liquidity worldwide, because as it drops in strength, governments around the world can start to relax controls on their currency, because their currency is measured against the dollar. If the dollar's strong, they need to strengthen their currency. But as the dollar weakens, they can weaken their currency by printing, and that's what makes global liquidity continue higher. So I do think we're going to see some massive moves in the dollar. I think we'll see it sub 95 in the coming months, and that's going to send Bitcoin and crypto sky high. We're going to see new all-time highs very, very soon. Now, what's nice to see is Bitcoin dominance has kept dropping. We did talk about this a few weeks ago on the last stream, just about how once this reversed, we thought it would be quite an aggressive drop. Now, we kind of marked this line as a potential bounce area for Bitcoin dominance, and I'm not entirely sure if this level will actually hold. If we look at the 4 hour, it could hold, and if this holds, it wouldn't actually surprise me if this coincided with an absolute Bitcoin tear to all-time high. We're only, $4,000 away from all-time high. It's like a 4% move, less than that, 3% move. If Bitcoin goes to all-time high, then it probably steals the show. So dominance probably does bounce a little bit, and then as that kind of fades, Bitcoin dominance is going to crater. And I do think we could see it down this level here, 60%, but much, much lower in the next few weeks. Probably over the next 2 weeks if Bitcoin goes on to all-time highs. And that would probably make sense. A little bounce here, Bitcoin pumps, and then Bitcoin starts getting caught up by the altcoins, by Ethereum, and dominance just nosedives once again. Looking at Solana's kind of been one of the leaders in the market over the past couple of years. We saw everything for Solana, to be fair. We saw it get absolute trashed when it was down here around, was it $7 or something like that? Yeah, it got as low as $8, and it was getting hammered by the markets, and then it went on to lead last year. We're now seeing it consolidate just below the 200-day moving average. I think we break this in the next couple of days, and once we break it, I think we do head back up to 260 pretty fast. There's not huge levels here, so you might say 219, stop off there, and then up to 260. But I do think the bullish thing across the market is that volumes are starting to increase. The bullish sentiment still isn't here, which gives me a lot of bullishness, actually. The more bearish crypto Twitter is, tells me this rally's still very early in its move. I saw somebody today saying, or last night, it was a pretty big KOL or influencer, whatever you want to call them, saying take profits, and then the market obviously had a bit of a pullback, and they were tweeting saying told you so, as if the market was going into a retracement. Well, Bitcoin's already back at the level it was at before that first tweet, so I think people are still bearish. People are still questioning if this is a suckers rally, if this is a dead cat bounce. There's people calling for a revisit of the lows. For me, I'm just not seeing anything to suggest that. There's altcoins getting bought up with serious volume. There's Bitcoin companies buying as much Bitcoin as they can, and we get ever closer to really good news for the market. So for me, all the bad news is behind us. What's ahead of us is rate cuts, QE, more liquidity, stablecoin bill from Trump, more pro-crypto legislation. The tariffs are the thing that put in the low. Tariffs are an absolute nothing story. We said that from day one. This was absolute nonsense. Tariffs turn out to be nothing. Nothing to do with Bitcoin. Nothing to do with crypto. And the entire trade war is going to be negotiated. And that's going to be bullish for all markets. But I think this tweet kind of highlights what's stopping us get to proper euphoria right now. JP Morgan sees next rate cut in December. Citigroup expects next rate cut in July. Goldman, next rate cut in December. Barclays, next rate cut in December. Wells Fargo, September. Bloomberg, December. There's no clear consensus across the market, and markets need clarity. They absolutely love clarity. They love to know what's happening 3 months from now, 6 months from now, because that's how they get paid. That's how they make money. So I think what Trump's doing and what his administration's doing right now with the trade war and with tariffs and all things like that, all it's doing really is sidelining loads of capital. So there's roughly $7 trillion in money parked in money markets. So it's earning like 4 or 5%, but it's just sitting there. And the reason it's there is because people aren't confident where they can deploy it yet. Well, they're not going to deploy it back into the stock market, into the Mag 7, because their run's already done. They're going to deploy it into Bitcoin and crypto once there's pro-crypto legislation, and that's what's going to be the catalyst for this bull run. And I think that legislation is coming very soon, and I actually think this year selling may go away, might not play out. And I've said for months the reason why is Trump wants the average person, the little guy, to win, and he keeps doing things that hamper Wall Street. He created his meme coin after Wall Street finished for the week. He announced the trade war on a Sunday when no one could trade because Wall Street was closed. He announced pro-Bitcoin policy because when the stock market was closed. He always does things right now that hamper Wall Street. And eventually he'll give in, and eventually he'll let them win because they have to win for him. But in the short term right now, he's doing things that are helping Bitcoin and crypto. And I think that'll continue, and I think we'll see pro-legislation. I think selling may go away, might be hampered because of it. And I think it's going to be a very exciting 2025. Let's have a look at Quantoshi. So, if you don't know what Quantoshi is an algorithm or a trading bot and you can copy it and it trades for you. We've started copying it in February, and currently it has a 71% win rate, and it's returning an annualized, let's look at all time actually, annualized return right now is sitting at 200%. Now, given that we went through the worst liquidation in crypto's history, these are insane results. So Shiv's asking, is it a good time to top up on Quantoshi? For me, it's always a good time, because they're going to keep trading. They're going to trade more and more, especially as we go into an uptrend. So if you increase your balance, then obviously they'll take bigger trades. Just don't impact any of the trades that are going on. So don't interfere with them, don't close them, don't take profit on them. Just let them do their thing. They're also going to introduce an Ethereum trading bot as the bull run progresses. So obviously, if you increase your balance, you're going to get to take part in that as well. But if you've not signed up to Quantoshi, there's a link for BloFin in our description. You need to sign up with our link in order to take part, and then you just search for Quantoshi CC Steady. And it's really simple to follow. You literally put funds in, and they do everything for you. Dick's saying there is a bug on BloFin and the win rate's actually higher. You can also see trade history, so you can see every trade they've ever taken, all the stats here. And yeah, as I say, it went through the worst liquidation event in history for crypto, one of the worst liquidation events in the stock market since the 80s, and we are still massively in profit. And the aim for certainly our profile is to get to $500 per week in passive income. That's on a 20k account, but anyone that's following along will know that this week it has been doing even more than that. So this month's results should be huge, especially at the rate we're going. As we speak, Solana just trying to break this 200-day moving average. If it breaks that, expect a bit of pullback, test its support, and then off we go. And that's kind of what Cardano's done as well. But the entire market looks so bullish. Ethereum just looks insane right now. The upgrade last week, I don't really buy into stuff like that. I don't believe that has anything to do with price. I think it's just coincidental. I think the smart money or the big money players just used it as an excuse to pump the market. Ethereum has been held down massively by shorts over the last 2 years. So the number of shorts against Ethereum was at a record high. It was in the billions. And yeah, it seems like they've decided that the foot can come off the brake, and Ethereum can fly. 8% today, 49% last week. It just looks like Ethereum is playing catch up. And I think if they get a staking ETF approved, we'll see more institutional flows to Ethereum. And I think what's actually happening across the market is we're starting to see that rotation out of big tech stocks. So if we look at, let's look at the S&P. So the S&P still short of all-time highs. It'll probably make new all-time highs very soon. We've also got NASDAQ off all-time highs, but on its way back up. But the most important one is the Russell. This is small caps. So this will do really well when Trump announces deregulation, and small caps, the Russell 2000, is correlated quite nicely with the altcoin market. So I do expect that to be even more bullish and just kick on even further. I think one of the things we're seeing is that people are waking up to the fact that the dollar is no longer this safe haven asset. The dollar is actually going to be inflated away, and China, Japan are selling their treasuries, and we can see that by the 10-year yield. So the 10-year yield just keeps climbing, and that's because there's more sellers than buyers, and they have to keep increasing the rate to attract buyers. I think Japan, China are offloading treasuries And there's a couple of reasons why. One, China, the trade war between the US and China means that the US isn't sending as many dollars to China, or it won't be because of the tariffs. That means China has less dollars to buy US debt. So that means there's less buyers for US debt. At the same time, China's offloading its debt. And I think for anyone paying attention to the macro world, there is some discussion that they're going to revalue the Chinese yuan versus the US dollar. And that's how they're going to come to some arrangement on trade. And it'll involve gold or something like that. So pay attention to that, because it could be very important for the dollar weakening, and it'll be very bullish for the markets, but it'll be very bearish for US treasuries, which means the Fed are going to have to step in and buy them to get this yield down. Because right now there's about 8 trillion needed to be refinanced in June, and they're not going to want to do it at 4.5%. They're going to want to do it down at 3.5%. So the only way to do it is massive buying of treasuries. So either they issue the stablecoin legislation very soon, which is bullish for crypto, and they'll force stablecoin issuers to buy tons of treasuries, or the Fed steps in and buys them. And I actually don't know which one comes first. It makes sense for treasuries to be bought by stablecoin issuers, and then every time a USDT or USDC is minted somewhere in the world, they have to go and buy the equivalent in US treasuries. That creates huge buying demand for US treasuries, and I think that might be their silver bullet, their secret up their sleeve, is that they're going to release the stablecoin legislation just in time to send huge buying demand into the treasury market, and that will dump the yield on the treasuries. Because if you think about it, everybody in the world wants dollars, but right now it's quite hard to get dollars if you're in Egypt or Nigeria or Argentina. You have to buy them on the black market, and you definitely can't store them in your bank account. Well, if digital dollars become legalized all around the world, the US digital dollar is everywhere through stablecoins, then it makes it really easy for people to hold dollars. More people will hold dollars, more demand, which leads to more demand for US treasuries, which reduces the yields. All of that is hugely bullish for Bitcoin and crypto, and that's why I still maintain Bitcoin will go to over 200k this cycle. Good question, Deck. Well, I suppose it depends. I think when you're trading or whenever you're doing anything investing, you should look at like percentage gains. So if you put £1,000 in and you're making 10% per month, you can compound that pretty easily. The beauty of the trading bot is it doesn't really matter what the market's doing. So we've had, if we went back, I don't think I can show it. I don't know if you can do it with these charts on BloFin. I don't think you can. But when we're done, if you went back to here, for example, so at this point in time, the bot was still trading and making profit, but the crypto market was barely moving. It was red. It was sideways. There was no movement at all. But the Quantoshi bot was still returning profits. That's the beauty of it. So while your altcoin portfolio might be down, sideways, doing nothing, you're still making £100 a month, £200 a month, whatever it is, on the Quantoshi bot. So it doesn't really matter total amount. It's all about percentages. So if you're making 10% a month, it doesn't matter if it's 1k or 10k, it's still 10%. So I think of it like that. But it's a great diversification from the crypto market, and it just means that even when there's sideways in the market or there's down trends, your altcoin portfolio is going down 30-40%, but the Quantoshi bot can keep returning passive income for you. So that's the way I would look at it. On top of that, if you don't touch the balance, it'll compound. So if you put £1,000 in, make 10% 1 month, that's £1,100. the new balance will be £1,100. So then the next month you'll make 10% on your £1,100. The next month it will be whatever that is, 12.10 or something like that, 12.20. But it compounds, and compounding interest is like, it's like a cheat code. Compounding gains is huge. So yeah, I wouldn't stress too much about what size you can put into it. It's mostly about just letting it run and kind of ignoring it for a few months. The compounded gains will be well worth it, regardless of what you start with. And Lee's basically hit it on the nail on the head. Like, he's going on holiday. He doesn't have to do anything. You don't have to touch it. They just trade for you. So once you deposit the money, you literally just sit back and ignore it. To be honest, I barely open. I don't have anything else on BloFin apart from the Quantoshi bot. So I very rarely go into the app. So yeah, Lee's spot on. Like, just leave it, come back, check it in July if you want. I'm just going to let mine compound, because I think that's the beauty of it. But yeah, other people will use it differently. So other people will put a set amount in and take maybe a certain amount of profit out every month, or they'll take an amount out depending on what they need it for. But for me, I'm just going to set it, forget, leave it to run, and see where we get to. Jake, yeah, I can speak about Galactica. They actually had, let me see if I can pull it up. So yeah, they had some pretty bullish news. They are working towards TG. So for me, they will TG. I've spoke to them a few times. It kind of got put back because of the market, and then they're trying to onboard quite a big institutional client that's going to tokenize assets. I think it's worth something stupid like $5 billion of assets. That could be totally made up, but it's a massive number. I can't remember off the top of my head, but basically that's what they're trying to do. And they do seem to be getting some institutional momentum. So they will TG soon. They've released a new roadmap. They're working with a few other projects as well. But this Hilbert group seemed like quite a big deal. So yeah, TG will come soon. Hopefully sooner rather than later. But I think now that the market's green, I think Bitcoin goes into all-time high, you're going to see everyone launch their tokens, because they can't risk missing out on the bull run completely. And if the bull run was to, if Bitcoin was to absolutely fly for the next 2 months and then crash, there'd be a lot of people that hadn't launched a token that would regret it. So I think you're going to see hundreds of TGs over the next probably 60 to 90 days. Yeah, Fraser, so there's different strategies with the bot. So there's uptrend, sideways, and downtrend. So yeah, I think that's the plan, is that during the bear market it'll continue to operate. To be fair, it operates really well during sideways time. We've saw that. So most of the bear market, if you actually look at it, once it's bottomed out, let's have a look. Like, if you look at these massive periods of sideways, this is a 3-day chart as well. So you've got 272 days. That's pretty much just chopped sideways. So the bot should do well in that period. That's the best part of a year. You've got this kind of from here to here. That's another 90 days. Again, here to here. Another 57 days. And then you've got here to here, 66 days. So there's loads of periods where the sideways algorithm that it runs on will do very well. And at that point, if you think about it, your altcoin bags or your Bitcoin, or whatever you're holding, is literally doing nothing. Like, you look at this period here, Bitcoin on 9th of November is at 16,951, and 9th of January, so 2 full months, it's it's still $17,000. It's done nothing for those 60 days. So your altcoins definitely won't be moving. So there's 60 days where you could be earning passive income as opposed to just watching your altcoin bag bleed out, which we've all been through. So yeah, that's the plan. Why is Opulus making a move? Just because the entire crypto market is flying, to be fair. I've not seen any big team updates, but it was way oversold. It hit the bottom of the range. So yeah, it's all we're really seeing is liquidity come back into the market. This whole period from December to April the 7th was just pure liquidity play. All it was liquidity drained from the market. We saw this bullish momentum was based on the Trump election and pro-crypto stance, but realistically, there was no liquidity to back that rally. That's why it faded so quick. It was literally 1 month pump on news, excitement, but there was no real liquidity to carry the rally on. So it just faded and obviously sold off. And then we got the trade war and we got whatever bad news story you want to list. There was so many of them, all aimed at basically I don't want to go into too much, but basically it was all nonsense media stories about how there's going to be nothing on shelves and recession was coming and all these things that just aren't true. And people that believe bad news typically don't make a lot of money. And that's why when 74k Bitcoin came, we told everybody that we were still very bullish. In fact, the weekend of 74k in CC Pro, we actually released a podcast saying these are all the reasons why we remain so bullish. That's how we knew that it was short-lived and it was all overblown. So yeah, Opulus is just a representation of the crypto market. It was way oversold, probably oversold more than most, and that's why we're seeing this significant bounce. When we do see liquidity return, typically it's the bigger projects that do well first and then the liquidity flows down. That's why we're still not seeing all the small caps pump. Like Inspect is, let's have a look, let me zoom in properly. You see it's still down sideways, not really doing much yet. You've got MV, I think it dumped the other day and now it's trading sideways. Even LimeWire put out a tweet that their volume on their website's up like 100x in the last 12 months. Well, it's doing nothing for price, but it's just because liquidity's not flowed down through the market yet. But once that rotation occurs, typically once we see Bitcoin go into all-time high, some of the other altcoins like Solana, XRP, these type of things go to all-time high. Once that happens, then you'll start to see the liquidity drip through the market to the smaller market caps. Is Drift dead? I feel like I get that question quite a lot, but normally just a different ticker. To be honest, I've not checked up on it recently. We're still vested, so I claimed some tokens the other day. I think you guys got 100% unlock, but they were working with a big gaming brand the last time I spoke to them. I'll try and get an update and maybe drop it in CC Pro for Drift holders. LimeWire price, I think I've said this a few times, but let me just show it on this screen. So it did really well in this spike, but I think it can easily go back to this all-time high. And the reason I say that across the entire market, and I'm pretty bullish on most things going way higher than everybody seems to expect, is the amount of liquidity that I think is going to flow into the crypto space is going to eclipse everything you've seen before. Money printing is going to be more than ever before. So that means it's going to be even more than during COVID. They're going to print trillions. China's going to print trillions because they're facing a massive deflationary issue. But the biggest problem of all, and it ties into what Ben's asked about the global M2 chart, the reason it's going to go insane over the next few months is because the amount of debt in the world, no one's buying it. No one would buy government debt. Why would you? Because you know they're going to inflate the currency to pay that debt back. So there's no buyers of debt. There's a massive shift going on right now, and I think that's why we're going to see crypto and Bitcoin do well. And if you think about it in a different sense, is if you look at who holds all the wealth in the world, the majority of the wealth's held by over 50-year-olds, especially in the US. Well, they're going to hand all that money down to children and grandchildren over the next 10 to 15 years. What are they going to buy? They're not going to buy Google stock. They're not going to buy Amazon stock. They're going to buy crypto. They're going to buy Bitcoin. They're not going to buy gold. A 23, 24-year-old isn't going to buy US treasuries. They're going to buy crypto. So we're about to see the biggest transfer of wealth ever. We're about to see the biggest money printing ever. And the assets that are going to do the best are going to be Bitcoin and crypto. So I think I'm not bothered about all-time highs. To be honest, I actually think what will wreck a lot of people is they'll sell early. They'll not think crypto's going as high as everybody else says, and then they'll buy back in, and then they'll buy the top, and that's what will happen. So what that would look like, I'll show you on the chart, because I was talking to somebody about this the other day. So the biggest issue in crypto will be if somebody sold Bitcoin, say they sold in here somewhere. Bitcoin goes higher, they sell, and then it starts ripping, and then they end up buying back in because they think, oh, it's going to 100k, so they buy there, and then they hold to here. They think this is just a correction, and then Bitcoin drops, and they're stuck holding the bag. That's what I think's the biggest danger in this next bull run, is people will sell Bitcoin at, say, 125k. They'll then see it at 135k. They'll buy it, and they'll think it's going to $1 million, and they'll get suckered in. That's the biggest problem in this bull run. But yeah, global M2 is going much, much higher. I think for Oculus before, I've said, I think I've got it on the chart actually, have I? No. I think this is definitely achievable, but I've got it much higher. This is $2 here is definitely a target where I'd be taking huge amounts of profit. Quantoshi is the USDT perpetual trades, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, Ben, good to point out, to be fair. I think the other thing is, as the dollar continues to weaken, countries around the world are just going to print trillions of dollars, because they are trillions of their own currency, because they can weaken versus the dollar. When the dollar's strong, it hurts the entire global economy, because they import stuff using the dollar to pay for stuff. They import oil, which is priced in dollars. So a strong dollar actually hurts everyone. So the weaker dollar is going to allow everybody to print. I think we're starting to see major liquidity coming through. So global liquidity is up. I think I've got the chart. It's not that one. Yeah, global liquidity is trending higher. This is the weekly, that's the monthly. Global liquidity is flying. The thing that's not flying right now is USM2. So it's starting to move up. Once this breaks out and makes an all-time high, this thing goes vertical in my opinion, and they're going to need to print in order to refinance their debt. And we saw the new funding bill that Trump's trying to push forward, and it increases their debt ceiling by $4 trillion. Like, we're talking trillions. This is what I think sometimes we struggle to get our heads around is, and I spoke to somebody about this the other day, so the total altcoin market right now is 900 billion. Well, there's 72 crypto ETFs, not Bitcoin or Ethereum, waiting to be approved. If they all get approved and 10 billion goes in each, then you're talking a $1.6 trillion altcoin market, excluding Bitcoin and Ethereum. That's a huge number. So yeah, I think the numbers are going to be insane. And then we've not even spoke about AI, and I hadn't actually prepared this, as you could tell, because I just done the wrong fib. But look, 1.65 trillion. Well, that's pretty much where you get to if you approve the ETFs. Like, the crypto market is going to be worth trillions. It's scary how much money's coming in my opinion. I think one of the big winners over the next time period's quite hard to say, but I think one of the big winners is going to be DEXs like Uniswap, Sushi, things like that. And one of the reasons for this, Jupiter, I think will do very, very well actually. I can't believe how cheap it still is. These are all going to do really well, and the reason for that is there's so many people that are building AI agents that are going to trade crypto for people using like rules or algorithms, or there's even somebody that's building one and you can program it based like a chat GBT. So you just type in saying, if Paul mentions QE long Bitcoin, and it'll literally go and do it for you. All these AI algorithms, programs, agents, whatever you want to call them, they're all going to trade using DEXs. They're not going to be able to use SEXs. So DEX volumes are going to go through the roof over the next 12 to 18 months. So I think big returns will come from things like Uniswap, SushiSwap. I think Jupiter will do really well. So yeah, any DEX token I think will do amazing in the coming 12 to 18 months. Yeah, Conrad, I think the gaming narrative will come back. It always does. Gaming narrative always has a turn. I think what everybody also needs to remember is we've literally had a few days of green. So we're not back at December highs. Most coins haven't got back to March highs. Never mind about December. So there's loads of room in this crypto market. We've had a few good, probably weeks now since the bottom, but we're still slowly getting into it. I still think XRP goes $9, definitely $7, but you know, we're still miles away from that. I think Bitcoin's got so much further to run. Ethereum, I still think can do maybe 3-4x from here. So I think people just need to be patient. I think during the bad times it's easy to say be patient because there's not what you go do selling a loss. Like, it's actually a bit easier sometimes in the bad times to be patient because you're not going to sell on a loss. But I think when the green returns, people get impatient because one day they'll have Ethereum do 7%, and then tomorrow it might just do flat or down, and then flat or down the next day, and then the next day it'll do 10%. But on those flat or sideways days, people get really impatient because they just want number go up every single day. So yeah, I think people just need to be patient. No, I understand you were talking about Xborg. My point is that the gaming narrative will come. We've only had a few days of green, so you just have to be patient during the green times because these narratives will come. That was my point. I'm very bullish on Xborg. I hold loads of it. I think it'll easily do $1, if not $2. The team continue to work really hard. They're always posting updates. So yeah, I'm really bullish on Xborg and the Borg token. So yeah, I have no doubts about that. My point is that when a coin doesn't move and the rest of the market's green, people start losing conviction. But times like this, you just need to sit on your hands and just wait for targets to be ticked off. But the bullish news is we are closer to QE in the States, and that'll really kick off massive moves because it's the biggest capital markets in the world. China's printing, we've got peace negotiations, everything that can come in the next kind of 3 to 6 months is going to be bullish for markets. So I think, yeah, for me, I would just have a really strong profit taking plan. Make sure you stick to your targets and literally just sit on your hands and let them come in. I wouldn't be stressing too much about this coin's not moved, this coin has, this one's lagging the market. Because for me, the real liquidity's not even arrived yet. This is just a taster. It's nice, don't get me wrong. It's great to see that, you know, crypto's back green and Ethereum's back actually moving. But it's still early days for me. Yeah. To be fair, Avalanche has got loads of noise around it just now. It's a bit of a strange one. I've never really paid too much attention to it, but they seem to have a lot of money and they're investing a lot in projects, especially in the gaming ecosystem. So, yeah, I think they're handing out grants left, right and centre to gaming projects. So I think they're obviously going to make quite a big move. But yeah, it looks really bullish. Double bottom. If you're looking at it purely from a TA point of view, just put in a double bottom. It's then came back and checked the top of the double bottom as support, which means we're basically looking at a target of about that. So just from this double bottom move, takes you up here to 32. So that would be quite a nice move up. Depending on where you bought, hopefully you bought during the bottom, but that's a 25% move, so anyone trading that would probably be pretty tasty, to be fair. 10x leverage, 250%. But yeah, I think it'll easily go past its December highs. Like I say, they're making a big push, and I think there's so many chains right now that I think the fact that they're actually going after a narrative is really bullish. They're going after gaming. I think that makes sense because Solana doesn't really do a lot of gaming. So yeah, I think there's just so many chains that in order to differentiate yourself, you kind of have to pick a narrative. So yeah, pretty bullish. But that's all for tonight. Thank you very much for tuning in. I'll be back. Maybe do another live stream later this week, especially if we get some bullish moves. I'd like to see XRP get back up to the $3 level. I think we'll get there very soon, but I think this week's going to be all about Bitcoin, and I think we could see new all-time high very soon. Definitely do a live stream when we get back to new all-time highs. Make sure to like the stream, and if you've not signed up to Quantoshi, all the links are in the description. And if you're not in CC Pro, you're missing out on all of this, so make sure to sign up using the link in the chat. I'll be back soon. Catch you very soon.